I don't think it's a fair expectation because who's setting that trend?
It's interesting, like when I was in high school, it took a long time for see-through shirts to be banned. As against dress codes, girls are wearing colorful bandeaus or bras, see-through shirt, and short skirts. That's what most of my peers wore. But I was the one that got pregnant and I was dressed more modestly.
One might just be more comfortable or not
Mhm.
comfortable with their body. But I think this is a good segue for in talking about like, well, we can't segue it because we have to get into that. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
I feel bad.
Can grab some
your
of those. You're dead. It's fine.
Welcome to Delivered, where we deliver mothers, midwives, and magic. We're sitting here just jawing and going on. And we're like, wait a minute. We should probably
do
our
segue as opposed to how we segue. We haven't introduced yet. We just need to introduce ourselves. Yeah.
Welcome. I'm Jazmyne.
I'm Erica.
I'm Cora.
And I'm Sherry.
We kidnapped Cora to come and talk. Cora's going to talk with us today about teen pregnancy. That is our topic for the day. We kind of talked about it a little bit last week and getting in because we were talking about the A word, access.
Yeah,
exactly.
And we talked about it. We wanted to write a t-shirt.
Access.
Access.
I know, right?
We want to start it on the front and then put access on the back.
Access on the back.
I think
that's what it
is.
Our first,
right?
We were talking about access, and then that segued into teen pregnancy and resources and how we are allowing people to have autonomy over their bodies and be in a space where they can access these things. Sometimes teen pregnancies lead to a space where there's this lack of access. So we wanted to dive deeper into it and talk about it, really.
Yeah.
Again. And so we kidnapped Cora so that she could tell us about her experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I had my daughter at 17 and it was interesting being in that teen pregnancy world. And I don't think I met a lot of other teen moms while I was a teen mom. I've met them later. Like I've connected and heard like their stories. And was it like, again, such a interesting experience where you're going through and you have to like all of a sudden now you're making decisions like an adult. I was still in high school, finishing up high school. I was wearing really baggy clothes, not super open about my pregnancy. I just went throughout my day like at school. And then afterwards I was like, okay, now we're going to do prenatal appointments. And now we're going to be figuring out like our nursery. And it was such a weird world to balance in and going through the options of making some really big adult decisions at such a young age in life.
Compartmentalize.
Yeah.
Pretty early.
Yeah.
I was impressed because most 17-year-olds cannot do that, but that's something you learn as an adult, compartmentalize. Like, okay, I'm doing this and now I'm doing this. Yeah, that's impressive to me.
And I think what we were talking about, which maybe Adam will use some outtakes from it, but talking about how you dress and how people perceive you. And I think when you're a teenager, you don't really even know who you are. That's where you're in this space of self-discovery. And are we as a society creating a safe space for these young adults to discover themselves and feel supported while they do it and to be educated enough to truly make choices where they understand consequences? And I think that's the piece where sometimes we fall short as a society or a community, is sometimes we have personal belief systems that cloud our judgment and our ability to better educate our youth.
Yeah, I think the treatment that you get when you're a teen pregnancy is hard because I always felt like as a teen mom that my peers were doing the same thing that got me pregnant, but mine was like I was wearing it. Like it was obvious. I couldn't hide that, whereas other people could. The treatment I got versus people who were more sexually active than even I was. I had like a boyfriend at the time who became my husband. I felt like more shame that I carried around with that. And I think that is interesting just based off of appearances.
But I think we get into that messy subject of organized religion and how it preaches abstinence. Sometimes, not everybody, but sometimes when you solely preach abstinence and you don't give the weight and the bulk behind that, where you're empowering your child to take ownership over their sexual feelings, whether that be physical, mental, spiritual. And I felt like religion kind of, as a parent too, you also think that sometimes you're above what's going on with the rest of the world, right? And then the reality sets in and going, oh yeah, I can't shelter my children, everything. And you go, no, I should be preparing myself. not sheltering them. I think that was a big shift for us. How do we open up our homes? Because I think it has to start there with parents. It has to start with the parents.
I think that's a big one with teen pregnancy, because what is the biggest fear? What was your biggest fear before you told your mom and dad that?
Oh, I mean, like, again,
her mother called her out on that though.
That's not fair though, because they're not midwife, and you're gonna know. But most
So
mothers,
you knew before she told you that she was
Dude,
pregnant.
a month before it came out, I had made a comment to her that I felt because at the time her partner was preparing to go on a mission and she was in school, and I noticed a change to her shape. And I said,
everyone wants to hear.
hey, I mean, let's just be
on?
real, right? Like,
Yeah.
and Cora's reaction was, you think I'm fat? And oh my God, I think
Fair.
you're beautiful. And then we let it go for a month. I thought,
We lived in denial for a very long time when I was pregnant.
how many weeks were you?
I was 20 weeks, 22
Yeah, I think
weeks
we
when
were-
I had my first.
I remember that. If you were not a midwife, because I have had several teen clients,
Yeah.
and when I've asked them, and they always come with their parents, but there's always appointments where I'm like, I need to see her alone. We need to talk about personal stuff. If you are mature enough to do the deed and get pregnant, then you are mature enough to sit with your care provider and answer questions. I would always ask, how anxious and how stressed out were you about telling your parents?
Yeah.
And the response has never been different. I was terrified. I disappointed them.
Exactly.
I have had a few teenage clients, and it's always interesting to me. They're usually the ones who have really good grades, actually pretty good familial support. They're involved in extracurricular activities.
And that was Cora.
I think that it's not always the kids who you think it's going to be.
Right.
But also what surprises me is how supportive the parents, like the
Sure.
parents, whatever she needs, whatever, yes, like, let's just
But
do
don't
this.
you think those are the parents that
I
are
think
even
those
picking
are
up the
absolutely
phone
the
and calling a
exception.
home birth midwife? That is like so
And that's just
rare.
it. They are absolutely the exception.
And I remember the day that I was with my sister, Amy. We were doing errands and Cora was at home and my husband went and got her the test.
Really?
Yeah.
He said,
Adam.
"Don't make me a grandpa."
Adam handed her the test and goes, don't you make me a grandpa. And the next phone call I got, my sister and I were on the way home and we were just kind of quiet in the car and Cora met me in the front grass of the house. And I remember we just embraced in the front yard and I said, we're going to be okay.
Gonna be fine. Because the reality is, it is not the end of the world.
As a Mormon housewife, it felt like it.
Feel like
It
was
felt
hard.
like an ultimate
It's funny.
failure on my
I
part.
actually recently had a conversation with my
understand
uncle
that, yeah.
because he didn't remember this, but I said when I first found out I was pregnant with Lena, I had like a lot of emotions and I was really, upset. And he looked at me and goes, well, it could be worse. You could have cancer. And I was like, I guess. Interesting retort. Thank you. You're right.
You're
I
not-
am. You're not wrong. I was like, you're right. I'm healthy. I'm getting a baby. Like, this isn't the end of the world. And it actually helped me feel a little bit better. And I told him about that later. He goes, I said that. And I was like, yes. Because he didn't.
So to be helpful for the people who are listening, though, how could parents create a safer space for their kids to talk? And how can the people, once they learn, because I feel like that second piece, which I'd like to get into later, is how could the people in your life as a teen, how can they shown up to you? What things could they have said that were different?
I think that I've always tried to make it like, even with my own daughter now, as she's 12 now, as she's getting into like preteen and going through her own changes, I've always tried to create a safe space. And we've had a lot of talks where I've been very open. It's always uncomfortable. She never was like, yeah, I want to talk about it. She's like, no. I'm like, I asked her pretty openly, like, do you feel like you can talk to me? I said, what? And there was a time where she's like, oh, I had a bad day at school. I don't want to talk about it. I said, okay, you don't have to talk to me about it, but is there anything I can do to make this a safe space for you? And we've had these conversations since she was young. And I think that has created a lot more comfort. Being a midwife, we're very open about our bodies. And like, I talk to my boys about the menstruation cycle, and we are very open in this household on those things. And so I try really hard to create that safe space where I know it's uncomfortable, but you can always come to me. And I think that that's always important, is just kind of as they go through being like, hey, and no, it's always awkward when it's your parents because it's your parents. You don't want to talk to them about your sex life ever.
You don't want to talk about their sex life. You don't want to talk about your sex life. You don't want to talk about sex.
Exactly. Well, and I think the pressure of Jerome preparing to be on his mission, I think had to have added another level of weight because as soon as that information was going to come out, that now closed that door.
Really? So there were consequences.
There were big consequences.
There's always consequences to you being a teen mom. It's just going to be a change in your life. And
I was going to ask if being a midwife made it easier to have these conversations, right? And I think that or to have these conversations with your kids. Yeah. And I think that's like an advantage that we have, right? Yeah. Because they're learning about the female anatomy and all of this. So it's definitely made it easier for me to talk to my kids about where the babies come from.
I think education, is always key, and communication. Right. I really think it comes down to really those two principles, is having that education and having that communication and having that open line.
I know for me, my youngest ended up coming to a couple of births with me, always at the hospital, never at home. I used to set up tubs once upon a time when Summerlin allowed tubs to be set up. And I remember one birth in particular, I came to set up the tub. This woman had a doula and she was getting ready to have a baby. This baby was coming. As soon as there was enough water, she got in and she had a baby. A look on my daughter's face, because she had a bird's eye view, watching this baby come out of this woman's vagina. Yeah. I think I know, because she was never, shall we say, short of tongue, ever, was silent on the ride home. And it wasn't until we got home where she was like, so that was a big head. That was the first, and the baby's head was not that big in the great scheme of things.
The first time you witnessed that, though, I feel like there's
absolutely, yeah. But I'm just trying to put it into perspective for people. It was not that big of a head. But yes, I think she was 13 or 14. But she told me later on in her mind, oh, hell no. I think it was at that point she decided she was never going to have children.
I remember the first time I saw my little cousin being born. I was just thinking about this the other day. And there were a lot of people in the room and I saw everything. I want to say I was 13, 14. I'm not having any kids.
Both of mine.
Right?
And they both stuck to it.
I did say that, but
I watched my brother Peyton be born. I was little when Peyton was born. I was 8? No.
You were 10 when Reese was born.
Reese, I'm talking about Peyton.
So Reese and Peyton are 4 years apart.
Okay. That was
6. Yeah.
6?
Maybe.
I was I felt older. I don't know. But I remember not feeling that way. I remember being really curious. Grandma kept trying to take me away and I kept being I want to watch. I wanted to be all up in there watching this baby being born because I was fascinated by it. So I think being a birth professional is such a unique calling. I went to the first birth I went to, I was 14 when I was there. And I remember being that was a really cool experience. Our bodies are powerful. We can do hard things.
I felt the same way when I saw my first birth. I was 15 or 16, volunteering at the maternity center. And I thought that was the coolest, most empowering thing I've ever
already
seen.
had a baby when I saw a baby be born for the first time. It was Aunt Janelle when she had Sarah. That was the first time I ever saw a baby come out of another human.
So I want to ask you a question. As someone who was a teen mother, did you watch a lot of birth videos?
You know what? I watched them I took a Lamaze class.
Oh yeah, she took
class. I took Jolina's class. And so I think we watched some classes there. I think I had a unique way of view going there. I had a lot of confidence in my body to give birth, which most 17-year-olds don't do. And I got a lot of people being aren't you scared? Aren't you terrified? And I was like, no, I'm ready. I know that I can do this. I think I had a unique perspective. I went through a lot of options. Even in the beginning of my pregnancy, we met with an adoption agency because I didn't know what I was going to do because I had so many different, options. I immediately knew that was not the path I was ever going to take. When I sat down in the office, I was like, no, not for me. I think that I had, for being 17, a lot of confidence and I knew what I wanted. Even with my partner, he was like, oh, no, hospital birth. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm giving birth at home and this is what I'm going to do. I had a lot of access to information and I was able to make my choices. My parents were great at being really supportive in whatever decision I wanted to do at that point too. I think that was really key for me, being treated like an adult, even though I knew I was still 17. It was really important that I got to make my own decisions. I got to ask my own questions, get my answers. And I kind of knew from experiences what I wanted to do.
Well, that reminds me of what you said earlier, Erica, about if you're mature enough to lay down and have this baby, you're mature enough to have conversations about different decisions. But I don't know if that's true, because we can do this physical thing that doesn't take a lot of maturity. That doesn't take being emotionally ready for that. I do think that conversation should happen, but I don't know if being in this teen space makes you, and already being pregnant makes you mature enough for that. Because 17, like you said, you don't know who you are.
Well, if you think about it physiologically, the teen body is best equipped for making babies, right? And so we used to know that you took on teens and their pregnancies were pretty straightforward and simple. But that was because we come from generationally young women starting their families. And then culturally, thank gosh, we pushed that date out and girls stopped getting married at 13, 14 years old, right? And thank goodness we could start pushing that out, because you're right. I think some of these girls had no choice but to grow up, but that didn't mean they didn't skip a lot of steps.
Yeah.
And now as adults, do you find yourself going back and having to revisit something because you're like, I had no choice but to act like an adult when I should have been out playing with my friends?
I have that. My mom was 15 when she had me. My grandmother, my great grandmother, they were all teenagers when they had first gotten pregnant. I'm one of the first women in my family who I had my kids in my 20s. And even not being a teen mom, I would go back after I had my kids and have to deal with things emotionally that I didn't get a chance to deal with before I had my kids. In every way, I wasn't as mature as I thought I was, right? Of course, I'll be going.
Yeah, I think at
doing
16, think you know all the answers.
I thought I knew everything at 24, 25 when I was having my kids. And now I'm in my 30s and I'm like, oh, I didn't know shit.
Isn't that part of the masking, right? Because you learn how to get what you want so that you get the least amount of resistance. You don't want to be yelled at. You don't want to be punished. So you step up and behave how other people. But I think given like a true opportunity to be self without expectation. And I think that's the piece when it comes to teen pregnancy is everything I read just said lack of accessibility and information. Because if your parents' belief system is solely abstinence, we've got to start being responsible and not solely having a conversation. And I think I mentioned that in the last video is I had a CNM in the Valley call me going, I overheard a physician I worked for, and this young girl was asking for birth control. And she said, I overheard her and talk her out of it. Right. And in my brain, I kind of go, yeah, we can't put our heads in the sand and pretend that people aren't exploring themselves. It's not something you agree with maybe spiritually. You can talk about that spiritual piece all you want, but there's that physical piece. Your hormones are showing up. You have feelings. You're put in situations with somebody you're attracted to, whether that's same sex, different sex, whoever that attraction is. Sometimes we make good ones, sometimes we make bad. I remember having to advocate for her for a lot of things and being like, yeah, y'all are doing the same shit. She just happened to be pregnant. This could be you. She's not doing anything different than what's being done around her. This could be any one of us. Let's love her because that's what we would want. And I think that that's hard because I think so much shame is around that and what responsibilities come with that.
What I said before about treating them as adults, I'm also going off my experiences.
Yeah.
So again, it's a different kind of young woman and her family who are going to seek out a home birth midwife. They're not like most kids and their parents. And I see posts in these mom groups. I have a daughter who's pregnant. I need to find an OB. And that's always the first question. Or I recently saw one, how does Southern Hills treat teen mothers? And so I think it's more about the kinds of families who would seek us out, and we are the exception rather than the rule. So I wanted to just clear that up because most teenagers, yes, they're going to do it and no, they are not ready for the consequences.
I think that too, even if they are not like mature enough, which again, most aren't, or I'd say majority, still giving them, even if treating like that adult, or still giving them information and still giving them their options, still talking to them about their choices and kind of helping prepare them for that, because whether they're ready or not, if they're having this baby, they need to be able to be prepared to make these decisions. I think it's even more vital. I've had a lot of teen moms too. I love taking teen moms clients because I can relate to them and I love sharing those stories. So I love when I get my teen moms, and I feel like even if I don't feel like, I'm like, oh, how are you feeling ready for this? Let's talk about this, and kind of helping get them there, because I have moms and they'll come in with their boyfriends and I can tell that they're not ready, because I know even when I felt like I was ready, I wasn't really. And so I think it was even more important for me to talk to them about big decisions. What are we doing here? Giving them their options so that they know what decisions they can make, because this is now their life that they're moving forward with.
And I think educate them. What came to me just now is like last week we talked about orange is the new black, and how they did this thing where like, this is the parts of you have 3 holes. And I'm being like, 3 holes? No way. I have 2. I pee out of the same hole. Just giving them opportunity to ask those questions, like going all the way back to those basic, like give them a safe space to not feel stupid or embarrassed.
And I would do the same thing. What kind of questions do you have? And once they figure out this is a safe space, I can ask this person anything.
Sure.
You get and they ask really great questions.
Yeah.
I love that about midwifery. I love that we get to be
too.
that space, because that's the fluffy stuff that's missing in the OB's office. People that go in, they're this cookie cutter that they're looking for, right? Everybody is treated the exact same. You can't treat everybody the same. You just can't. That's because we're not the same.
And if you're treating a teen pregnant human, you're probably going to need much more time. So if you cannot give that extra time to that teen mom, then you have no business taking that teen mom. I feel like you now are not a good resource for that. And the reason I bring it up is because I did a little bit of homework about Nevada specifically and some of the statistics that we have.
Oh, I love when you do your statistics.
Teen pregnancy statistics. So high teen birth rates in economically depressed areas, certain neighborhoods in Las Vegas, particularly those served by high schools like Desert Pines, Western Mojave, have teen rates ranging from 109 to 119 per thousand. This is significantly higher than the national average. Do you know what the national average? I just told you those schools, 109 to 119. What is the national average? In 2013, 26. 26.6 out of 1,000 is the national average. So the state has been on the decline because there have been some local organizations that have made this an important process. Since those statistics in 2013 were on the upwards swing of that number going down. Some of the resources that I had looked up was St. Jude's Ranch for Children offers a comprehensive program for pregnant and parenting teens. The program provides support to ensure mothers can continue their education and develop their parenting skills. And then there's something called the Nevada Primary Care Association, and their teen pregnancy prevention program promotes safe, supportive sexual and reproductive health education to reduce unplanned pregnancies among adolescents. I've known of people who've scheduled instructors to come into I know my sister hired someone to come she borrowed our space, but she would have done it in her home. And several of her kids' friends came over and were able to talk to somebody who was a professional and answer questions. Sometimes that feels a little bit more personalized than being in a room full of all genders and a wide range of ages. The Southern Nevada Health District implemented a teen pregnancy program aiming for a 15% reduction in teen pregnancy rates among adolescents in Las Vegas and North Las Vegas by 2020. So that has been what they're trying to accomplish. And when I looked up regulations that impacted them, essentially the only kind of conclusion that kind of came to was the fact that, and this is crazy, ChatGPT even brought this up because I data gathered from there as well. And it brought up the CPM bill.
Wow.
And it said the fact that this didn't pass limited access. So that's the idea. If the state doesn't recognize midwives, difficult for us to treat them because we're not networked with Medicaid or insurance companies because most humans are on their parents. We serve people on their parents' insurance up to
26.
When we look at those numbers and see the amount of teen pregnancies, to me, that's lack of resource. That's lack of education.
Yeah.
The A word. Access.
Yeah.
But I love the efforts that have been taken.
They've recognized it's an issue and they've got different organizations working to do better. And I think as midwives, it's such a beautiful, even if they came to us solely for the prenatal care to get the one-on-one.
They don't feel comfortable birthing at home, but they have not enjoyed care with an OB. I explained to them the whole laborist program, like you're going to get who you get.
Yeah.
But that is a trade-off that is worth it because they know that they've gotten good prenatal care with a lot of education and then continuing to see them through postpartum.
Yeah.
So I think that's also important to note that there is a trade-off. You don't have to have your baby at home. But hiring a midwife, you're going to get more in-depth care, more education, and you're going to feel a whole lot better about having a baby.
And I think more resources to childbirth, independent, not hospital-led, but more independent childbirth education classes. So
I
that
feel
they
like there used to
they
be
can go.
more independent classes, and now I don't feel like there's a whole lot.
I know that it's expensive.
I
The
think that's
classes
the
hard
hard
piece. I think we have the least expensive class around town. Everybody
it's
else
just
is
a
upwards of
two-weeker.
like $200-300.
300.
Wow.
Actually, I think she's closer to 4.
And I've had some clients
Because
do
it's 5
online
weeks.
classes.
Like a client of mine is doing some online stuff.
I've had two that I have done 2 different programs just recently, and they really enjoyed that. And it came with things they can listen to. And
I would
at their
love
own pace.
self-study, but I think you cannot replace getting together with other pregnant families in the community.
Yeah,
I
it
know.
builds
Well,
that
I
community.
honestly
Yeah.
feel like since the pandemic, that has really gone.
Is that what the switch has been?
Well, don't you think that was what you learned, is that we needed each other? Like at first it was like a relief. Like, oh my gosh, yay, we don't have to deal with people.
I don't have to see
But
anybody.
then it became like, I really miss people. I really miss seeing people. I really miss connecting with people. I really miss learning these things in person. I really miss taking care of my clients in person, because me doing a telehealth appointment is incomparable.
I'm not a fan of telehealth appointments only because I can't do the clinicals. Like I need to know, I need to be able to hear your baby. I need to be able to take your blood pressure. I want to be able
Here
to.
in my office, I just get so much more from you.
Yes. And I think something gets lost.
I mean, I love that telehealth isn't the access word there. Telehealth does make it accessible. Online
Yes.
classes does make it more
Yes.
accessible. But I think building something in community is so important. I am really glad that there are agencies out there helping youth, but I do like this idea of just educating them early. All high schoolers should know their bodies and understand their cycle. I think one of the most beautiful fertility books I read was Katie Singer. I love Katie Singer when it came to fertility, because she was all about incorporating the partner. And how different would life have been if the partner celebrated and held you in a safe space during menstruation?
I think that having conversations with my boys has been just as important as having conversations with my daughters. It was interesting because I was talking to my daughter about her potentially getting her period. And my son was like, what is that? What is that? And she goes, oh, you don't need to know. It's none of your business. And I was like, no, actually, Lena, this is important that he asks these questions. He can be a good partner one day, that he can like learn this information, support the women around him, and know how our bodies function, those differences that we will have. And being educated is just as important. And I think sometimes that I've noticed even myself that sometimes I focus so much on just educating my daughter, because it does pertain obviously more to her. But sometimes I forget to educate my boys that will maybe one day, if they decide to have a child and be a partner.
A lot of things are like that. Like even boys playing with dolls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
People get really upset about stuff like that. And it's like, they get to practice being a dad.
Yeah.
You know, that's actually really good practice. But I do want to, because we have limited time, we are talking about mental health, right? So I think that this empowerment and this education can lend to that if we do get in the situation of teen pregnancy where we need to uplift somebody and hold somebody. You know?
Mental health really affects teen moms. As a teen mom, I felt a lot more isolated from my peers. I didn't feel like I fit into either group, because I no longer fit in with my peers, because I was having things going on that they no longer could relate to. They couldn't relate to being pregnant, having a baby, or being like a young mom. But also, I didn't feel like I fit in with the other moms because they were older and had other things going on. So I was kind of in this area where you feel isolated, you lose a lot of friends, there's not a lot of outreach. It's easy, I think, for them to become more isolated, more depressed, and feel more anxious, because they have so many of these other outward factors playing in. So giving them resources and finding other like support groups, because I do know there's a ton of support groups for teen moms and getting together with another teen moms.
And so I do think this generation of youth, because they've kind of grown up around those of us who are taking our mental health seriously, you know, I kind of think we hit like where we're like, holy crap, we can't keep functioning like this as a society. Thank goodness, like this youth coming out, at least talking to a therapist isn't as stigmatized as it used to be. Just because Cora was going to like seminary and her youth groups and her youth programs. And I know in church, they said if she's keeping the baby, she has to transfer over to like the adult stuff. And for me, I was like, she deserves to finish this year out with her friends. Like, I don't know why she has to be separated from her friends right now. And they said, well, we don't want to ever make something she did look like we're approving it. In my brain, I felt like, and maybe I was wrong, but I remember being in the office a lot complaining because I felt like she deserved to finish the year out with her friends. And so I remember when you came into like adult lessons and stuff, like I can imagine that did feel like a mental way, like you were having to abruptly say goodbye to your youth. That felt heavy for me as your mom. We're walking away from her friends and these youth programs. She's still a youth. She's still in high school. She's seeing that through. Are these women going to come show up at her house and talk about schoolwork and the things she's doing day to day? We weren't doing those things. It is kind of a fragmented culture when you're leaving. How many couples do you have going, we're the first of our friends having a baby and we feel like
That was me.
now we can't go out. You're now experiencing something somebody in their 20s, 30s, 40s has a hard time doing, but you're doing that as a teen. You're saying goodbye way too soon. And so I think making sure that we protect those relationships that pregnant humans have with those peers they've developed relationships with already.
Which is a good way to move into support, because that's our next segment is support. How can we best support our teen moms? I would say remove the shame. Like don't shame them. That is
what's
not
happening,
healthy.
What's happening is supernatural. Yeah, it may not have happened when like in the order that you wanted it to, but I think what you were saying is like you had this experience in church, right? And they're like, okay, things have to change now. There was a lot of shame. I was in my 20s, but because I wasn't married, my grandma didn't talk to me for 2 months after I told her I was pregnant.
I got married because I was pregnant, and I was basically told I was ruining my life.
I do think that there's this shame around when we integrate religion and
I also
not
think,
being married or teen pregnancy kind of space, you know?
I also think that people feel like if they are nice, it's almost like they're accepting it, like they're going to make it like acceptable and that other people are going to want to do that. And I'm like, no teen wants to end up, or I should say most teens don't. Yeah, I was going to say,
Something.
but most, it's not planned. It's not like this is what they're.
Well, and it's already done. You can't take it back.
Yeah,
No,
but I'm just saying it's not making
No backsies.
there's no,
like,
we're here now.
yeah.
So I was like, we're already here. We passed
So
that.
let's move on. Let's move
But
on.
like
This
making
is
it
where we're at.
acceptable
Let's
for
move
their
on.
peers or making this be normalized. I think that people, I definitely got that they didn't want to make this the normal or
Because
whatever.
we threw a
and this
baby
is-
shower for her. And so the president of the youth organization called and said, we just don't know how we feel about the girls attending this because it kind of, we're worried this is going to be the positive pieces of Cora's life. And I went,
So you want to make it a negative piece? You want to?
I'm like, well,
what do
Cora's
you
over
really
here
want to
going
do?
through this, whether this is inconvenient or the
And
bad
I
timing
will say
bad.
that-
It was hard.
But my friends from church were super accepting and loving on me. None of them had teen pregnancies, but they did show up. I had a good friend, McKenna, the sweetest
sure.
throughout the whole pregnancy, and never treated me differently. And I think that those people who did that will always stick out a little bit more to you. But my point is just accepting that and kind of helping remove some of that shame. And
Even like when you share this idea of when I got married outside of wedlock, my grandma didn't talk to me for 2 months, right? And your grandma was probably just doing her best and
Yeah.
wanting the best for you,
And
dealing with
what-
her own,
what she
whatever's
felt that made
triggering.
her.
I guess what comes to me is sometimes as a parent, it's hard not to make things about us.
We don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to talk about that too.
Sometimes as
Almost like
parents,
with
we have
parents.
to have a real conversation with ourselves and go, it's not about us.
But as
It's-
parents, don't we do that? Whatever my kid is going through, that means that's something that I
reflection on
did.
me.
And it totally is
it's
not. And it's hard to move away from that theory.
But how important is it for that kid that you have that real conversation with yourself and go, this isn't about me. We need to make it about her because this is all about her. This is her life that changes. And so I think that's how we support. And I think we kind of normalize talking about it
Yeah.
and be willing to have
Destigmatizing it.
awkward conversation.
And those awkward conversations lead to more empowerment. They lead to people being held in safe spaces. It leads to people making informed decisions about their lives.
Education always comes back
empowerment.
to education
does.
and empowerment,
Yeah.
because the more educated
and,
you are,
and being vulnerable. I look back to Elise Myers. Do you follow her? That cute little girl who was one of the first people to talk about her mental health. She started admitting, like, I'm struggling with these things. And she was one of the first people to start a chat going, I struggle with these things. This is where my mental health space. And all of a sudden, she became so freaking relatable. And then made me feel like my feelings, even if they weren't totally like hers. I think that piece of talking about, hey, I'm struggling with this. How are some ways that you get through that, and opening up that dialogue to kind of remove the stigma?
Yeah, I think it helps when I've had even teen moms come in and be like, oh my gosh, I had my daughter at 17. And then they're like, oh, immediately they feel more comfortable just talking to me, because not many people can. Yeah, experience.
You know
relate
exactly.
to that.
Yeah. And I think that is important. Like, you're relatable. Absolutely relatable. And you help to remove that stigma, that shame. And I think that's important.
And I think, you know what I wanted to add to is those numbers that I gave you in the state of Nevada, how many teenage moms gave birth every, is it like quarter? Maybe you'll have to just close up and I'll have to share it later, because it was talking about how our state ranks the 15th highest in teen birth rates in the United States, meaning 8 teens are giving birth every day. And that was a little less than 10 years ago. I think that's the big eye opener. If that's how many
That's
youth
a lot.
in the state are giving birth, we should be doing better.
We should be doing better.
Yeah.
And we do better by educating, empowering, and just holding space and loving people regardless of what's going on. So I think that should be our call to action. If you know a teen mom or someone who is pregnant right now and they're a teenager, love on them. Let them be vulnerable in your space. Let them take away that stigma and allow them to be themselves, and just love them. I think that's what it always comes down to, is loving somebody, right?
It's not their job to make themselves easier to love. That's important. Good call to action, ladies.
Thanks for letting us kidnap you, Cora.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us for Delivered, where we deliver mothers, midwives, and magic. Peace, y'all. Hey, guys. Exactly. Do it.
Now you look like babushka.
I love that.
Give me your cookies. Give me a cookie.
Yeah, we can print anything out.
I printed something out.
I don't have something. Our outline.
Do you need that? Do we want that? I just typed in a bunch of local Nevada stats, resources, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Girl, I just
can't make it. And my eyebrows aren't done, guys. I don't have eyebrows.
Really? Is she really?
Yes.
Oh, teen pregnancy.
So as Erica has it, I was pregnant.
Did you pull it up?
This is what happens when you have babies and then you get fat. All right.
And I'll sit all the way over here. Does that work?
Yeah.
I thought we were just going to give super close.
So bad.
We can be super close.
Here.
You turn out fine.
Look at what you can do.
I don't know if we're supposed to call you out right now, but I think we're going to call you on it. You look great.
I absolutely do not.
I'm conscious of my shaved head on the side.
No.
You haven't done these.
I feel
do
that. No, I haven't done it
Okay,
being
so
serious.
I can take my hair out. Hold on.
These are just outtakes right now.
We recording.
Outtakes are always amusing.
It's fine. Guys.
You know,
I need to do like,
I've been thinking about how my brain works, and I'm telling me,
What is that? Mama me. That's my evidence.
so we can enunciate.
Yeah.
Yes. And then
we have problems enunciating. Every time we drive to our doctor's better. Oh yeah, should we listen to today? And we try to dig deep in the past. And we used to listen to Aqua. Remember that? I'm a Barbie girl. So we said,
Goddess.
it's serious. So music is coming
I
on.
didn't do anything to it this morning after I washed it.
you put it in your bun, so it's like wavy.
It's really wavy and curly.
And it's like you got volume going on. Looks great.
And all she says is, I need my haircut every time she takes it out. Oh my gosh, I need my haircut.
I want your longer, but it's guys.
Take it down.
No, because that'll be weird. No, because it'll have like a weird crease.
I don't think if you're auditioning for like a boyfriend or something on here, I don't think this is the channel that's
Date
gonna.
me, guys.
It's gonna still happen.
Don't need no
Oh, shit.
But look how cute your nails are. Your nails are amazing.
Zoom in on just my nails. I'm gonna talk like this. Hi guys. Erica, if I talk like this the whole time, would you be embarrassed?
I feel like the 90s had some bad music which we accepted.
The 90s?
Top 40.
Negative.
So like
You
what
can't
in the
do that.
90s. Listen to it and all of a sudden this song comes on so random and I start singing the words. It felt like someone went in my body, possessed me, remembered the words, and I thought,
Oh, I
let's
have
choose
I
what
have to
memories
take
we
this
keep
to
and
my
what
dog.
Oh, yeah. You just said I need to calm her down.
Okay, so like,
Hi.
if you point your hands outwards, it makes
I'm
the-
okay. How are
your
you?
arm look skinny. So you have to like be
You were on my
That's-
list.
You like you see how
I was
my
going to
arm
call you on
look
my
at-
way
look at
home.
my now. To see how my arm looks fat, and then see if I move it.
How
like
are
this,
you?
it
Yeah.
looks skinnier.
You just look muscular.
Okay, yeah,
Not like hella muscly, but you just look
Yeah.
like you have more muscle tone. Is
It's
that what you
better.
mean?
it's better.
I will. I say the
like-
prayer. This is a monumental one. This is 50. This is a big one.
It'll be an entertaining episode, you
Guys,
guys.
talking about music. And you know what that reminded me of?
It
The
is,
time
but
in the car, I was telling you about the thong song. And thong song. And he's like, the thong song, is that really a thing? And I'm like, yeah. And so I put it on, and I'm looking at me like, is this real? And I go, yeah. Early 2000s. I was full on
Yeah,
vomit.
culture.
It was just so funny because she was like, is this a real
What is
thing?
that song? Oh my gosh, I can't think of the name. But you know, it's like
I feel like I
two,
have to play
four,
this.
five.
Oh,
Watch the
it
girls
is
want to
brilliant.
drink wine,
but
No,
Try not to
that's
waste your
not it.
time.
No.
Oh, Henny in the Coat.
I am.
But yeah,
Something.
What?
That-
You have one in your, like if you have Venmo or whatever,
Yeah,
any
PayPal.
payment. PayPal,
Okay.
you just go in there and it'll,
Okay.
because like you can scan, you can take a photo to make it easier. There should be a QR code in there and I just screenshot it.
So I made a QR code yesterday for PayPal.
Oh, you probably already have one.
PayPal makes
Okay,
you
good.
free one.
That was free. I went through some, but I
Yeah.
deleted the app. I don't know if it's still good. What I'm trying to do is make a QR code for my products so people can just scan and pay for it that way. But it doesn't.
So Jazmyne did that for me on Venmo for Well Run a Mama.
Venmo and Cash App.
Yes,
and
and
Zelle
Cash App.
too.
When I go to pay somebody with Zelle, it gives me warnings specifically for that.
Because they're not giving you the money back if you're if you send money and it's the wrong person, they're not gonna reimburse you. You can't call fraud for
Yeah.
it. So they're just
You're just kind of disclosing that.
yeah. They do
Yeah.
warn you a lot though. So because sometimes people's names, like my name in people's phone is Jazmyne Turner, but on my bank account is Jazmyne Mohammed. So they're like, oh, is this you? And I have to go, yeah, there may be another name on there for things like that. Right?
Yeah.
I just think it would be easier because I just made a whole bunch of salve and I'm going to make some pregnancy
Yeah.
tea.
I love that. I have a
I have
Starbucks
all of
thing.
these essential oil roller bottles that I'd honestly just like to give away.
Oh,
I really just
to your
want
clients.
I just realized I really have to pee.
go,
I'm
go
gonna-
pee.
go do
No,
that. We haven't
need
done
to
an
s-
intro.
I
Just remember you're wearing your
leaving it
mic.
here. And
Great,
people
everyone can
just
hear me
take-
pee.
I'm serious. I
Okay.
just-
Like there's already oil in them.
Well,
Oh.
made that.
Maybe we can put them in those boxes.
Because we're doing like a promo that, of course, a picture of the boxes and send it to Shayna. We're doing a promo that any consultation they get the first 20. Did you see them? I haven't looked at them yet.
She just.
I don't
think.
do yours. I saw yours.
I don't think
I didn't-
it's done mine yet.
Yes,
They're super cute. I totally forgot. So I did that this morning. I'm like, I am so spacey. I forgot. I'm sure. So
I saw they came and I just haven't looked at them.
No,
So I
they're
kind of
cute.
like that.
I like
It all
different
different colors. I like that too a lot. Kind of makes each one kind of stand out. I like that.
Yeah, I feel really boundary. That's wow.
well, that's why I redid my pantry because I needed herbs and what I need. So like I did a basic inventory. Like I know I need plantain. I have to get plantain.
There was a lot out when Jazmyne looked, and I think we tried a new shop, didn't we? Didn't we order some of the herbs from a new place?
We were going to, but we didn't. We
Let me
was
know
that
what
good
company
thing
you're
called?
really grounded because I'll go with you.
Okay.
I mean, it's a dangerous place for me to go, but yeah.
I just
Listen,
need
I'll spend my
2
whole
more of
paycheck
those
on
tea
that.
bags.
Which tea bags? The
Oh.
reusable ones?
The fennel digestive ones. So that's what we're giving away from delivered at the swag bags. Is I got
Okay.
a little tea bag, and I was going to put a little recipe for like
Okay.
colicky babies.
I forgot I have some lip gloss. That might make me feel a little
Like
bit
that
better.
felt like a beneficial thing.
Which color? Oh, you're not.
I don't know.
We're all went all the way
it's
to the
blank.
side.
This
So
one?
Yeah.
I don't know what they look like on
Yeah,
you.
that
so
one.
I wouldn't want to give you that advice.
No, they all look good on me.
Oh,
I can't wear lipstick. It
I
gets
like
lumpy and I don't
I like
it.
that Tarte one though. I think
There?
you get
They
it
make
from
you look
Oil.
oil. Yeah, we
Yeah.
got that.
Oh, that's what I have on now.
Okay, hold on, guys. This will make me feel better, okay?
That's too juicy. Is that what they call it? Yeah, Maruca juicy. All right.
Yeah, so I just have to make up the little cards and get those printed, and those are going to go on the thing. But I'm too shy.
which is okay. I'll just go make like all of them and then we out the office for delivery.
I'll be honest, when I was going through stuff today, I was getting pissed.
With how much stuff that you have.
Well, how much stuff?
But it's so good. It's spring cleaning, right?
My next big project is cleaning out the office at home. It just needs to be cleaned out, and I'm gonna bring in some pictures for here. But I literally walk
here a lot too.
And I was like, I can't do this now. It was too overwhelming.
You gotta build up to that, right? You have to have the energy for that.
I think
sometimes I just have to start with something small.
That's why I did the pantry. I started with the pantry,
and then I get confidence by doing
yes,
it. Yeah,
that's how I feel.
Sometimes I go the other way. I'm ready to do it. And then I pull a bunch of stuff out. And then I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then there's
I've seen the videos where it's like when your ADHD like energy runs out and like you're torn apart. And I was like, that's literally me. And everything's
I'm afraid it's going to happen with the office. Like I'm going to start to pull because I've got boxes yet. That have no business being
will help you is I'll text you, be like, hey, I'm headed over to see it. And then you'd be like, oh crap, I have to get this done before she comes. Then I'll just never show up.
or she will come.
Or I will come.
don't like rat yourself out.
And I may or may not have done anything anyway because that doesn't necessarily work.
Maybe I'm going to stop by randomly this month. Maybe. You better be prepared for it.
And if you tell me I'm coming to my house, my helper, we're going to be like, I'm going to be scrubbing.
My husband just noticed that I hung up a subway map in our downstairs bathroom. Like he just noticed.
How long has it been hanging out?
Like 2 weeks.
Guys are observant.
He said no one ever.
It's opposite.
I'm like, really? When did you put that up? I didn't even know what he was talking about. He goes, the subway map. I'm like,
did you get a frame?
yes.
Is that the one you were saying
Yes,
you were going to get?
I got it framed.
Where'd you go? Or you just bought one?
I just bought a frame and put it up.
I felt like I'm a surprise guest, but the surprise was to myself.
Like, I
Wait,
what are the problem? Kidnap a gas.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have any like hard stops? What are we talking about? I mean, real ill prepared.
My experience teen pregnancy.
I think we lock it down and try and do 40 again.
40 minutes.
Yep.
So I think that went well.
So it's our welcome and recap, mental health and teen pregnancy,
Mental health also sucks. So we're excited that.
systems and empowerment, and then the closing and call to action because next week is doula practices.
Woo! Yeah,
That'll
that's
be
bad.
Be a doula.
Get one. Be a doula, hire a doula, love a doula, pay a doula.
Pay a doula. Pay
The doula.
pay your midwife.
Pay all the birth workers in your life.
We're gonna do a whole podcast on that though.
But yeah, you gotta pay.
We've done it on the previous
Did you guys
YouTube
hear
even.
somebody jingling out there? Is the door locked? Could people walk in?
Good.
They
We
could
lock
lock
it. Lock it.
No, nobody's here.
Do you want to lock the front door? I think we should lock it.
What if they get robbed? I never know.
You know what? Erica, that just reminded me. Remember that time on Pebble when we were doing the workshop? All of our persons were in cash wrap.
Ooh, I do
Someone
remember that.
came in while we were all teaching in the back room and stole all of our purses.
Oh my
Do you
God.
remember? And then we had to go get cameras.
Oh, I was heartbroken. Not because my wallet was stolen, but because of what was in my wallet. And it wasn't even money. There was like memorabilia in my wallet,
Some
like
photos.
pictures. And I was like, I've just taken the money in the cars and left the wallet. But it was
The
a nice
original
wallet.
one, remember that one guy that would show up just randomly?
He still did. I think he's been to this space too. Like he's been to every one of our faces.
People all the time that they can't come in because a lot of times people will be like, "Hey, can I come in and just sit here?" And I'll be like,
No.
I've gotten that too.
"Sorry,
I used to
You
do that
can.
in our space downtown.
No,
People
my
would ask
friend.
to come in.
no."
And I'll be like, are you pregnant?
I
No.
get that it might be hot outside, but that's not. You can go into like
I put a bench out front.
McDonald's.
That is
or-
my duty.
These are so
That's
To
what
being
we
next to
did.
Sunset
What'd you
Park
get
if you
yourself?
need a rest in the
What?
shade.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for my nails to grow.
So I have this new spa place that I'm going to take you to.
Ooh,
It'll
what?
be a new fave. They had a lot of jewelry behind the counter that I was like,
Is it the place we went?
I'm not, no,
Political.
no, that was where Jazmyne showed me where I took you.
No, I'm talking to you about where your
Right.
nails. Like when I went with you to get
I'm
your
talking
nails.
about massages.
Oh, okay, it's different.
and they have jewelry.
Oh,
I need a
stop
new
Jewel
job.
Street and like, I was like, oh, I'm definitely come back. And we added a scrub. So for $20 or $30, you could add a full body scrub.
Well,
I think I want to go and get my hair washed and stuff, but I'm just going to bring my own shampoo because I feel like they're going to really
Get in there.
I did
had,
that last year, remember?
I had a friend who went and got one done, and
You know
they
what else
showed
I
her
want?
like her scalp, how dirty it was before and after.
I don't want to see that. Like, don't show me. Don't show me how dirty my scalp was. I don't need that in my life. But I want to do a float.
I know.
Well, the like thing where you
Remember?
still
We had a client just do it.
Yeah.
and
At Queenum's Cultivation
Oh,
Rent Party, one of the
yeah.
raffle prizes they were giving away, the owner of the food vendor that was there, that I can't remember the name of, but they were vegan. And the owner's husband owns a float spot. And that was one of the gifts they gave away. You know, infrared sauna.
I want to do it. I have a nurse under my care right now, and she wakes up every day and does red light therapy for 30 minutes every morning.
Really? These are things that we need to integrate into our daily.
Self-care, my morning takes me 3 hours.
you see this thing essentially on cellulite. Like it's like this thing that goes down your legs and it has red light in it and like this like suction thing. It's supposed to help break up the cellulite.
I
I
mean,
need
there's
that much
something
do any of
about
that.
red light
I wanna do
therapy.
it.
I just feel like it. I don't know. Okay.
I feel
so
like by
let's
the
get into it.
time
Let's
I get to
into it.
Miami Beach, no one's looking at my legs.
Get into it.
Oh, yeah, but like look at these legs need to be admired. I
Sweetheart,
still have squat.
You're half my age. Believe me, no one's going to look at me.
They're going to see your hair and think because you're so beautiful.
I made a conscious decision not to blow out my hair this morning.
Oh.
I just could not deal. Well, I got annoyed. I couldn't find the comb because I don't brush my hair
Okay.
when I get out of the shower. I comb it.
I would have showered and done my makeup and the little rolly thing on my hair if I had known I'd be sitting here right now.
You know
We're
what?
so happy to have you.
We're so
love
happy to
being
have
tall.
you.
So sweet.
And you know what? Maybe in the future, when you leave your house, if that's really important to you, never know what could happen.
People,
You know what our
around
mothers
me-
used to tell us when we were little? You could get into a car accident. Are you wearing clean underwear today? Like it matters.
wouldn't you just crap your underwear if you guys
Exactly. Like it matters.
Like,
I was the wise
like it
ass kid
matters.
who would say, does it really matter?
All right.
Car accident.
It's the least of my worries.
Okay, but what if,
Exactly.
you know, why I'm worried? Be like, what if we ran to like a millionaire? who wanted to
Important
sweep me off
topics
the feet, you know?
today.
That's what you really got.
That's like saying clean underwear. I do feel like when I look at my worst, I do run into people.
Yeah, exactly. Karma.
Yeah.
Or like
So
the
the
universe.
I feel like that's when I get hit on the most. Is when I look like no effort whatsoever. Okay,
so
so
it makes you approachable.
and that's what I've heard because I'm like,
don't wanna be
bro,
valuable.
if I put on makeup and I go outside and I do my hair and I do all these things, like that's when I'm like, okay, I'm ready for somebody to
Yeah.
approach me. And they're like, well, our guard is down because you look regular. And I'm like, that's stupid. Yeah, doesn't make much sense to me.
Yeah. I heard that's
For
pretty
sure.
easy to intimidate people by just getting ready. That's a
stupid.
superpower right there, man. You
Yeah.
put on a little bit of makeup,
That
curl
was
your hair,
resting.
makes you unapproachable.
Not wear Crocs
Easy.
like we're regular dudes.
I guess. Yeah.
I guess too.
I guess.
I thought about that this morning when I was getting dressed.
What?
Like, I thought about my kids this morning. It's weird. I thought about my kid, well, because today is the 50th anniversary of my mother's passing. So I've been thinking about my kids today.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about them when I was getting dressed this morning and my New Year's resolution. My New Year's resolution was I'm still going to be the same salty, bitchy old broad that I've always been. I'm just going to dress better and look a little better doing it. Like, that's it. So I'm not wearing a whole lot of makeup today because I had an allergy attack and I wiped it all off. But I thought about what I was wearing today. So this is like something that I would wear running around New York. I have sneakers on, decent looking jeans. If I got invited out to lunch or a drink, it would be acceptable. I do have lip gloss in my bag. If I went, left me for cocktails, totally acceptable. But yeah, that's what I was thinking about this morning and what I was wearing.
I've never worn a lot of makeup because I feel like once you start wearing a lot of makeup, then when you don't wear it, people are like, you look tired today. And you're like, no, this is just my face.
My regular face.
But that's why I love Pamela Anderson. I love that she's doing that.
She's just being herself.
Uh-huh.
Which if you want to wear makeup, wear makeup. If you don't, don't. But like,
Yeah, I don't like that people rag on other women who don't wear makeup. Like Alicia Keys, she had this whole fresh face. She was talking that. She was like, yeah, if you wear makeup, you pretty much ain't shit, or there's something going on internally, which isn't true. I think it
That's
could
just
be
like to
true,
feel pretty.
but
And I think it's a form of artistic expression, just expressing yourself. I do think we're getting better about that. I went to that show at the Sphere. It was so good. As I looked around, it was like a movie that would have been made while I was growing up talking about the future, because you had someone there in gym shorts and sneakers and a tee, and then you have someone wearing some weird like bodysuit with glitter, glow in the dark, whatever. And then you'd have someone who was all gussied up and classy. You had all these humans in the same space enjoying the same event and the same activity. And I thought, I like this. I want people to feel like they can step out and express themselves, however that looks, whether that's the natural version of yourself or not. But I just noticed that the girls that always did their face up, they kind of always then almost like set a precedence for themselves.
It's like I get a jump scare when I take my fake eyelashes off after I've been wearing them for a while. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. That's what I look like. Like, oh.
Yeah, what are you like? You're like Kent Clark. You're like,
oh, my glasses came off.
I was super bad. Now you can't recognize me because I'm wearing eyelashes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I like that too, though. I like that people feel like they can just be themselves. And I think that's about like where we live too. You know, like we're in Vegas, so kind of anything goes, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. Libby and I were talking about how differently people dress here than in New York. Like, I can honestly say that no one in New York is going to go to their grocery store in their pajamas and slippers. It is never going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's also like the fashion, completely different. And what I noticed it more in was the teenagers. The teenagers here do not know how to dress. The boys all dress like slobs, and most of the girls look like hoochie mamas. Like, oh,
Yeah.
you're going to be a teen pregnancy, which is our topic today, ironically. But that is what they are giving off. The kids in New York, if they're not wearing a uniform, they're dressed. And it doesn't matter if you live in Washington Heights or the Upper West Side, you're dressed. You wouldn't be caught dead going out of the house looking like a slob.
I guess I don't feel that way when I see people. I don't know that I would refer to somebody as a hoochie mama.
Maybe that was a poor choice of
Well,
word.
maybe I'm wrong. I just think that people, like, who's setting that expectation?
I think
Who's
it's
saying
different.
that?
I think
I think
people in
that
the
too.
South dress differently. I think it's really regional.
I see some crazy stuff out here though, but it's never like you look like a certain type of person. It's more like what you're wearing doesn't appeal to me. I don't think it looks great on you. So I'll think in my head, do they have friends? Is anyone telling them like,
tell you what you look
that
before you
this
left the
doesn't
house?
look good? But if they feel empowered in that,
Maybe that was a poor choice
Confident,
of
you
words
know.
on my part.
I know you don't feel like what you said,
But it's just
but
they
you're
are
just
putting
noticing the
out-
differences.
Yes, they're putting
You're
out.
noticing the differences.
Yes.
That thing just happened in the White House, right?
Jinx.
Wasn't it Zelensky, the guy from Ukraine, was there and he wasn't wearing a suit? And all the reporters kept asking about was, why aren't you wearing a suit?
Who cares what you're wearing?
That was the whole point. This man's fighting for his country.
And you're asking him about a
The reporter goes, look at all the other humans in this room. You don't own a suit? It was the strangest thing. And so I guess for me, I like getting away from that expectation that this is how I have to look to be respected. This is how I have to dress to be respected. I subscribe to it a little bit, and I do think about what I wear in the morning, and I think about, who I run into, like when you leave, but like I don't necessarily like it.